Hi, so in my intro to mass communication class today, we talked about books, and of course, I had a lot to say about it. And I wasn't even planning on recording today, so I'm gonna talk to you about books, and hopefully you learned something. So my mass communication class includes us talking about the constant evolution of media and how it influences the way that we speak to each other, the way that we live our lives, the way that we add things to our lives, and everything under the sun. And I'm going to be saying some words like media, medium, and noise. And I'm going to explain those to you, of course, because I don't want you to get all confused. When people hear the word medium, they immediately go to like a psychic or someone who has like tarot cards and stuff. That's not what it means in mass communication. Media is more than just social media. Media is things that we just actively gain messages from the receiver. That's a simplistic way to define media. And media has different mediums. Medium is like a specific set of media. Like literature is a medium. Film is a medium. Music is a medium. Everything like that. So medium is not, in this case of communication, is not someone who reads the future or anything like that. Medium is just a form of media. Media is the plural form of medium. Now that we got formal terms out of the way, I can start talking to you about the medium, which is literature. We start off every class in my intro to mass communication with a writing prompt that's given from our professor. And today's writing prompt was, what is a book that you love? I volunteered and started talking about the book The Fury, which I talk about a lot. I think I talked about that on my Instagram, a little bit somewhere else. I think it was mostly Instagram though. The Fury is a great book. I think it's definitely a book to get you out of a book rut. And I think that was what it was brought to me as when I was thinking about it. I didn't buy the book at the time it was told for me to read it. I had like so many pictures of that book in my phone, and I was like, I'm just gonna read it because I'm at my library and somebody isn't borrowing it. I read it very quickly. I read it while I was at DreamCon, and it was spectacular. I like it. If you like You, the series with Joe Goldberg, you'll definitely like The Fury. Books, in most cases, introduce you to characters that you may disagree with, you may agree with, some that you resonate with, and some people you're just like, oh, I know somebody who's like this character, because it's just, it has a lot of cultural value. Literature has its own set of cultural value. At the beginning of the discussion that we have, and I say discussion a lot because as a person who is in advertising and public relations, that is a part of the College of Communication. If you're in school, there's College of Arts and Sciences, Communication and Information, there's health and things like that. What I'm in specifically is College of Communication and Information. So the classes that we're taking constantly challenge the way that we act around each other, the way that we talk to each other, how we perceive each other. So the content that we're given and the activities that we have to do act for us to talk to each other in our classes. And it's very engaging. I think that's what I really enjoy about being in College of Communication. We started talking about the main barrier that people have when it comes to reading. A lot of times when I have conversations with people who don't read as much, they have this same problem, and it's staying focused within the book. So the thing is, one of my classmates was talking about how reading is an ongoing stream of consciousness. Like, you have to actively be locked in when you're reading these books, because on top of the book that you're reading, there's so many things going on in your head, maybe even going on around you, that just don't let you focus in fully on this piece of literature. And noise is a good term to use because it's more than just physical noise. Noise and communication has a different term than actual like noise. Like, noise essentially is when a message is being interfered with and can't be fully analyzed by the audience from the speaker. That's noise in communication form. So it's more than just people who are outside mowing their lawn and people, you know, cooking, your siblings interrupting you. That is noise. But let's say I'm the message and this is the receiver, and I'm giving you the message and you're not analyzing it, right? You're not really interpreting the message that I'm giving you. That acts as noise because the message isn't fully being sent to you the way that it's supposed to be. So there's a lot of times where people have to constantly keep rereading the things that they just read because it's just not clicking. And that was a problem that I had when I was in high school. Sometimes I just wouldn't grasp it. The way to help with that is to understand that the author is inviting you into this world and you have to find out what's going on in it. So when you're reading this book and you're like, two households, both alike in dignity, and you're like, okay, two households. I don't really know what this means. Two households. Oh, this is Romeo and Juliet. We're talking about Romeos and we're talking about Juliets, the Montagues and the Capulets. Please don't call me a nerd. I get that every day. Might as well just write the word dork on my forehead. It's very easy to get caught up in the things around you when you're reading something of another world. There was a TED Talk that our professor showed us about how reading is essentially essential to the way that we talk to each other. And she was bringing all these statistics about how people who read after high school are a large amount that just don't read anymore. And the statistics for college was even higher. She even brought up statistics about divorce, and the main reason for divorce is lack of communication. And communication can combat that with the lack of reading. It's not really saying you're divorced because you don't read, but you're not gaining the right sense of communication and the right way to communicate because you don't read. Something like that. When you read, you constantly build your vocabulary every single day, just by like 30 minutes. This isn't like a persuasive op-ed of me telling you that you should read, but I'm just telling you, like, the books are there. It's either you read them or you don't. I might just get divorced later on though, is all I'm saying. I'm gonna link the TED Talk in the description, so if you want to take a look at it, you can. She also talks about how written language is more complex than verbal speech, and it is because there are a lot of cultural values when it comes to reading and literature as a medium. Because when you really think of it, literature is truly an uninterrupted medium. I said before how things can interrupt you, but the media itself doesn't. You could be reading a book for an hour and then you're just turning a page. You're not going to turn a page and all of a sudden you get an ad for 30 seconds that you just can't skip. You know? For it to be an uninterrupted medium though is why I think it gets in the way of a lot of people's attention spans, because we're actively looking on social media all day, every day. And the problem behind that is just a lot of people, when it comes to social media, it's just a quick little dopamine fix. I understand that too, because I can do it, but a lot of times we constantly go, I think we subconsciously revert to social media for instant gratification. Like, it just constantly just makes us feel good, but for a very short amount of time. Your brain pivots a lot when you're watching TikTok or just social media, just one that actually just has a feed, because you'll just have a steady feed, you know, regular laughing, you know, something's very funny. Then you get something that's Palestine that kind of brings you down a little bit. Now you've got something about someone surprising their boyfriend 300 miles away. It goes back up. Oh, someone just died. I need money to help my dog. It goes all over the place. Like, your brain is doing this every time you're on TikTok. And it's not necessarily healthy. There's a way to go about it though, because as someone who is in the media, communication, film area, like I'm in that field, I can't not be away from media. So I have to understand and figure out my relationship with it, which is what a lot of people will argue it to be hot and cold. The relationship that I have with media is very recreational because I can pivot into any source of media that I want to. Let's say it like this, right? I'm reading a book, and for right now, I'm not really feeling it. I feel like I've read enough for the day. I'm kind of over it. I'm gonna go listen to some music while I take a shower. Oh, this song reminds me of this movie that I wanna go watch later. I'm gonna watch this movie that I really enjoy because someone suggested that, because I like this show that I watched that has a lot of different talking points that I really enjoy, I love. And the talking points that people like to talk about in a podcast that I listen to once a week that people love to read in books. So it just kind of goes back all over the place. Like, you can go anywhere you see fit. Reading is very important. Of course, reading is fundamental. It has a lot of cultural repository, meaning you can go back to something as old as 100 years ago. Let's use Great Gatsby, for example. I think Great Gatsby is almost pushing 100 years. But the thing is, people revert to Great Gatsby when they think of the Roaring 20s, when they think of Prohibition, when they think of, you know, yellow cars. They think of Great Gatsby. And after that, and new money, old money, all of those situations, it's going to revert to that. We can refer to something old and it still remain unchanged. That's what it means for reading to be a cultural repository. Books, we also learned that books are windows of development. personal development and like good resources for understanding you as a person, you know, referring to the self-help genre. Of course, you can learn anything by reading. You can learn how to tie your shoe. You can learn how to color grade on your editing videos. You could learn how to build a house. You know, you can learn how to be financially stable, financial wealth, how to get out of debt. Anything in the world. And for obvious reasons, books are great sources of entertainment. Like, you can go in, if you don't feel like you want to be a part of this world right now, you can go read about Hogwarts for an hour and come back changed. Like, we also talked a lot about censorship and banned books. And I myself am very fortunate to be in a high school class where the books that we read are very traditional Americana literature. Like, we read To Kill a Mockingbird, we read Catcher in the Rye, Of Mice and Men, I read The Bluest Eye, and all of those very classic novels. But the thing is, they're not, I don't think they're teaching that, and I'm really wondering what they're teaching in school now. What are the kids learning about? The kids. That makes me sound really old. But for obvious reasons, we kind of know why the books are getting banned and which books are specifically getting banned. Any book that has to do with racial discrepancies and injustices in America, anything that's written by a person of color, anyone who is on the LGBTQIA spectrum, anything like that. Like, it's just, there was a classmate that talked about how she was from Florida, and that's kind of like the pivotal point of where they're getting the whole banned books thing from. And she was talking about this group called Moms of Liberation or something like that, I think. But it was a group of moms who were just actively talking about they just wanted these books to be banned. And it's crazy how they preach about liberation when these books are probably the most liberating pieces of literature of all time. So there's no irony there. It just doesn't click, I guess. And on top of books that have racial discrepancies and talks about injustices and not having an equal quality of life, there are also books that challenge the power dynamic in governments, like 1984 and Fahrenheit 451, which is very telling. Fahrenheit 451, if you don't know, is about a firefighter who is made to burn books because books are supposed to be banned in the society and they take away information, and it's telling. You're banning Fahrenheit 451. This like actually has to be a simulation. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Censorship of books is making literature not become a cultural repository because the amount of people limiting these novels are not allowing people to understand a lot of racial undertones that happened in the 1960s, the 1930s, and the 1940s. While we're taking away this information, what are we replacing it with? Just something to think about. If we're taking away all of these books written by James Baldwin, by Toni Morrison, by all of these deceased authors, what are the kids learning? What are we reading about now? Because I'd actually like to know. I mean, eventually, when I have children and they go into high school, I would like to know what books they're gonna read. I swear if they come home with a Colleen Hoover book, I'm burning it. That's the book I'm gonna burn. I don't care. I don't care about the Colleen Hoover slander. I'm on the forefront. No. Sorry, not sorry, actually. Each its own, of course. Like, if you're reading a Colleen Hoover book, you're still actively reading. I think a lot of times people feel a little hesitant about reading because they feel like they need to read something that's always so profound and so thought-provoking. But the act of reading that's still the principle of reading. You're still actually taking the time to read a book. Referring back to what I said earlier about reading being an ongoing stream of consciousness, I can understand why people would say that audiobooks are not the same as physical books. You have to see the situation as it is, though. There are some people who are out there who cannot read physical books and have to revert to audiobooks. But in this case, if they choose to listen to an audiobook, fully willingly able to choose an audiobook, you're still doing something else. Like, you're either folding your clothes, you're either cooking or something like that. You're not fully invested in the physical entity of the book. You know what I mean? I can see it. I can understand it. It's also in a sense where if we're arguing about how they're the same, they would be the same, but they're different. So they are different. I feel like there's a theory about that somehow, but I just don't know the term for it. I have conversations with my friends and how they don't like to read, and they're like, well, I read manga. And I'm like, yeah, so you do read. It depends, though. I think when people have that conversation about how they feel about reading, how they only read manga or how they only, like, I don't know, they don't read anything that's has a very big prose, I guess. It just depends on what you want to do with your reading. No one's going to tell you what to read and how to read this certain thing. Of course, people will give you recommendations because I do that all the time. But when it comes to what kind of reader do you want to be, that's a question you have to ask yourself. If you want to be fully knowledgeable in the things going on around you, if you want to learn more about Palestine, you can read books about Palestine. If you want to know how to manipulate people, read the 48 Rules of Power. Some people use that, and that's kind of scary. I haven't read it, but if you've read the whole book, I'm not gonna talk to you. If you've read 48 Rules of Power or 48 Laws of Power, and that's your favorite book, don't let it be your favorite book. Because now I'm not gonna talk to you. You might actually just get blocked. If you've read any of those Robert Greene books, we can have a conversation about it. Just don't say that it's your favorite book. Because now I feel like it's gonna be a test with you every time we hang out, you know? If you wanna learn how to be a better person, you can read self-help books. If you wanna learn how to cook, use a cookbook. Or hell, if you just want a nice little romance, little fluffy marshmallow book, then go ahead and get that fluffy marshmallow book. It's your reading. You can do whatever you want with it. It's also a case where you could just be like me, where you have so much work to read for class where you don't have enough time to read outside of class. And it just kind of pushes you out of that wanting to read because you're already reading so much and you have a hard time shifting back into, hey, I wonder what's going on in my book right now, from everything going on in your primary sources and all the literary responses you have to make in a discussion board. It's all in what you consume and how you feel about consuming it. If you've read 50 mangas in 2 weeks, you should be proud of reading 50 mangas in 2 weeks because you like manga. If you've read all of the Anna Huang, Twisted Fate, those spicy books, if you've read all of those and you can't get enough of them, congratulations, you've read all of the spice books. Like you've read. I think people just forget that reading is, open it up and you read. There are different ways to enrich your mind with reading, and it doesn't have to always be something so mind-boggling. Oh my God, Because sometimes you just want your brain to breathe. And if you want to read a little webtoon like I do, go ahead. You're still reading. That's actually all I had today about literature. I hope you enjoyed. I do want to further emphasize that these books that you've seen, there's a list of banned books, and if you want to read these books, you still have the power to read them. They're just not being taught in schools, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be taught at all. There are so many book clubs and podcast episodes about why these books are so important in American culture, and they're a different lens into what we weren't a part of at that time, especially as a Gen Z, especially as a person in the Gen Z generation. Comment your favorite book. Comment a book that you're currently reading. Why do you like literature? Why do you hate literature? What's a book that actually made you stop reading? Who made you stop reading? Let's get into that. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys whenever I see you. Tune into The Garden, me and Cam's podcast. I'll also link that in the description below. I am going to drink an energy drink and eat dark chocolate and popcorn so that I can stay focused and do a lot of homework. Love you, bye.